Russian soldiers put their hands up.
For a robot.
No human on the other end, just a machine rolling toward them.
And they surrendered to it.
22,000 ground robot missions in 3 months. That's not a pilot program anymore. That's a doctrine.
And the surrender thing is the part that stops you, because surrender is this deeply human act. You drop your weapon, you raise your hands, you're communicating to another person, I'm not a threat, don't shoot me. Except the thing in front of you has no discretion. It can't accept your surrender.
Which creates a genuinely new problem. If a soldier tries to surrender to a machine and the machine doesn't have the capacity to register that, what happens next?
Ukraine is saying the Russians approached the robots with their hands up. What the brigade found when they secured the position was bodies.
Whether that means the surrender wasn't registered or the machines didn't have the capacity to register it at all is exactly the question. But the scenario itself is now real. It happened.
The way wars change is usually gradual and then sudden. Tanks were experimental in 1916, standard issue by 1939. Drones were surveillance tools in the early 2000s, then they were weapons, and now Ukraine is running them in swarms.
The 22,000 number is the thing I keep coming back to, because that's the scale at which something stops being a tactic and becomes the shape of the war. At that volume, you're not supplementing human soldiers, you're building a parallel force.
And the economics make it permanent. A robot doesn't need food or sleep or medical evacuation. It doesn't have a family. You lose one and you order another. That changes the calculus of what a commander is willing to risk.
It also changes what the other side has to prepare for. Russia is presumably watching every one of these 22,000 missions and building countermeasures, which means in 6 months we'll have robots designed to defeat other robots before any human engages at all.
The first battle is already automated. 2 forces sending machines at each other while the people sit behind a screen somewhere deciding when to move up.
The legal frameworks were written before anyone imagined this was possible. They haven't moved.
And it turns out the robots aren't just receiving surrenders, they're learning to read the room.
There's a company in Silicon Valley selling a beanie hat that lets you type by thinking. You put it on, you silently say a word in your head, and it appears on screen.
No surgery, no electrodes drilled into anything.
Just a hat. The way it works, your brain produces electrical signals even when you're not actually speaking. When you mentally rehearse a word, your neurons fire in patterns specific enough to that word that a sensor on your scalp can pick it up.
Which is wild because we've always assumed thought was private by default, like the skull was the firewall.
And for most of human history, that was just true, until the sensors got sensitive enough and the models got smart enough to start separating signal from noise.
The surgical version has been around for a few years. Neuralink, the company Elon Musk backs, implants a chip with tiny electrodes that sit directly against brain tissue, which gives you clean, precise signals because there's nothing between the sensor and the neurons.
The Beanie is betting that the signals you can capture non-invasively have gotten good enough with the right machine learning models, meaning software that improves its pattern recognition the more examples it sees, to be useful even if they're messy.
And useful here means something specific, not reading your full internal monologue, not your feelings or your memories, just the words you consciously intend to produce. You think, delete that sentence, and it deletes the sentence.
For people who can't type or speak, that's not a gadget. That's a communication channel that didn't exist for them before.
The harder question is what happens to the data. Every word you think at that hat is going somewhere.
Reading minds is one thing.
Writing them is another. There's a specific nightmare scenario that security teams are starting to run into. Someone publishes a fake story, a completely fabricated data breach at a real company. AI news aggregators pick it up, flag it as a breaking incident, and before anyone can verify anything, that company's legal team is on emergency calls. The PR people are drafting apology statements, and the CEO is getting texts from board members.
No actual breach happened. The damage is real anyway.
And the stories are credible now. They include specific numbers, 4.2 million records exposed, a named database, a CVE identifier that sounds plausible, the kind of technical texture that makes a security reporter pause before dismissing it.
CVE identifiers are the official tracking numbers assigned to known software vulnerabilities. They look authoritative by design. Stick a fake one in a fake article, and suddenly the whole thing has a paper trail that leads nowhere, but reads like somewhere.
Then there's the weirder version. Old breach stories from 2019, 2021, sitting dormant somewhere. They get re-indexed by a crawler with a fresh timestamp. An AI aggregator sees data breach plus today's date and marks it urgent. Same company, same incident that was resolved years ago, now being treated like it happened this morning.
So the threat isn't just fabrication, it's time.
A real event from the past wearing the clothes of a present emergency, and the company has to respond either way because the reputational exposure doesn't wait for fact-checking.
The attack surface here isn't the network or the login page, it's the news cycle itself.
The playbook for this is already forming. You set a Google alert for your own company name paired with the word breach. You have a holding statement ready before you know if anything is real. You're running crisis comms for an attack that may not exist. And the defense hasn't caught up yet because you can't firewall a news story. The US military uses AI to generate target lists, track incoming missiles, and coordinate drone swarms all faster than any human can follow. The rule that keeps this legal is that a human has to approve the decision before anything fires.
Except the human watching the screen can't see inside the model. They don't know why it flagged that target or what it weighted.
So they're approving outputs from a process they can't audit in seconds under pressure.
That's not oversight. That's a signature on a document you weren't allowed to read. And as the systems get faster, the gap between who's technically in charge and who actually understands what's happening just keeps opening. A bank sent its customers' active login sessions to Temu, not through a breach, through an ad tracking pixel the bank had willingly installed on its own pages.
A tracking pixel is a tiny invisible piece of code that ad networks use to follow users around the web, completely routine. Every security tool the bank had looked at it and said, fine.
But the pixel was quietly bouncing logged-in users through a redirect to Temu's servers before they even knew they'd left.
Session cookies, the things that prove to your bank that it's actually you, riding along for free.
And the bank approved the pixel. No one broke in. The door was propped open from the inside.
Almost every major financial site is running third-party ad code on authenticated pages right now. Anthropic just released a new model, Claude Opus 4.7, and in the same announcement mentioned that they already have something more powerful they won't ship.
The withheld model is called Mythos. The only people testing it are a small group of cybersecurity companies.
Which is a very specific group to hand something dangerous to.
It means the thing they're worried about is probably what Mythos can do to infrastructure, to systems, to code it was never supposed to touch.
So they built it, confirmed it's ahead of what they just released, and put it in a drawer.
The part that stays with you is that the drawer exists at all.
And that drawer is probably not the only one.
Every lab with a frontier model has a version of it.
Tomorrow's already looking strange.
The kind of strange that turns out to matter.
We sort through it every day.
Bring someone who'd want to know.
We'll be here.
So will you.
I'm Knox. Every Saturday on Pulse Deep Dive, one story, the history, the present, and what comes next. Find it wherever you listen.
Singularity Pulse is for informational purposes only. Nothing here is financial, legal, or professional advice. Views expressed are our own.